that we have with the recommendations actually deal with the recommendations in your general plan and how they contradict a little bit. One is that it's proposed by the Land Use Committee that the P160 not be considered and that all TDRs be put in the town of Wallsburg. Let's look at a map for just a minute. So this is a zoning map of the valley. You'll see that right next to the town is the A20 zone and the RA5. These are the agricultural zones that we're trying to protect. The county's general plan says that the A20 zone specifically recommended that TDRs be used in that zone, and that once transferred out to a receiving area, the density goes from 1 per 20 to 1 per 5. It's not our idea, it's the idea that's in the general plan. It's intended so that the agricultural land can remain, which is part of the aspects of the valley, make it nice, so that the landowner can be compensated. Now with the proposal to put it all into the town, let's just think about this for a minute. There's about 880 acres in the A20 zone. So if that is all sent out at 1 per 5, that's 176 TDRs. I'm concerned without an interlocal agreement, a plan from the town of Wallsburg, that there's probably not a place to send all of those. Plus the area that's adjacent to it that's most likely to be used in their annexation plan is the exact area we're trying to preserve, the agricultural land. County ordinance already allows the P160 to be used as a receiving zone. So with our landowners that own land in the A20 and in the P160, we have a coordinated effort to then put it on the lower bench areas of the P160 where it could then be clustered. Agricultural land can be reserved. We have well over 7,000 acres that could then handle these. Again, if it was all 800 acres, 176 TDRs. Of the 596 acres in the A20, it's 119 TDRs. We have the land to accommodate that.
What's the total number?
The total number.
You add them all up if you transfer everything possible. And plus you add the 160.
So the current zoning, without it,
Under current, yeah.
okay, so the current zoning would allow for 94 lots without implementing TDRs. If the TDRs which are in your general plan were then put in the zoning code, that would put the total amount up to 183 in the overlay zone. We're proposing a base of 235. We'll get into the slide map for a minute. So my concern is that maybe there's not enough room around the town of Wallsburg, and number two, it's most likely to be put in areas that general plan encourages preservation of the agricultural zones. So again, the recommendation from the committee is only in the town. In the town is allowed per your code. So there still is a possibility to work with the town to transfer some development rights there, but it's changing the committee asked to change your code to prohibit it to only in the town. It's currently allowed in the county in 4 times. You can see up there that both groups have recommended that the sending areas be put in permanent open space. Your code currently allows for the P160 as a receiving zone. You received the recommendation tonight to not allow that. Clustering from both groups is encouraged and is recommended in your zoning code or general plan. Both groups have recommended density bonuses. The advisory committee has recommended 25% for clustering in the P160. We've recommended a sliding scale similar to your plan performance codes in other areas of 0 to 65 based on the public benefits that you give. I also want to point out that we are trying to do some things to preserve it. The proposal that we've committed to is 80% open space, and we've designated a no-build line of almost 5,000 acres on the mountainside. So your general plan already encourages the preservation of agricultural land. We're adding the aspect of also preserving the mountain area in the P160. Doug, could you maybe help me expand this area in red? Oh, sorry. Oops. This one right here. Yeah, okay. So this is from your staff report that was in today's packet. Just a few things I'd like to emphasize from them. It says the proposed land use recommendations by the advisory committee allow for development by use of TDRs. Okay? TDRs require a willing seller and the town's approval to be a receiving zone. Now let's go down to the next paragraph. He says there are a lot of logistics to be worked out. Staff's opinion is that it will be difficult to get all of these things to work out. Meaning agreements with the town, a willing seller. The current general plan recommends that the valley floor be preserved, which we're trying to do with the overlay zone proposal, by use of TDRs, and it already allows the use of the P160 if approved by council to be a receiving zone. So our proposal is just stick with the general plan that we have, not allow it to go into the town, as your ordinance says, but not restrict it to only be in the town. Just also want to emphasize this. The applicant, Mike Nelson Group, is correct in that the proposal of TDRs in preserving the valley floor is consistent with recommendations of the general plan. Those recommendations have been in the general plan since its adoption in 2001 and remained in the updates in 2007. Both of those included public hearings in Wallsburg. The applicant is also correct as stated before that the P160 may be a receiving zone. So we don't think our recommendations are too far off of what's already in your reports.
Do you remember if the recommendation of P160 was in the 2001 general plan?
Or TDR?
Yes.
But it did add in
I think it got added in 2007.
I'm especially talking about TDRs.
I can look for it. 7 would have been when that committee was meeting, wouldn't it?
Well, those were your staff's recommendations. That last statement of that. Doug, I'm going to need help with the computer one more time. Yeah, just move that a little bit. So as we've gone through this process, I felt like many of the biggest concerns is not necessarily the land use, but it's the number of people it would bring in and the extra density. I just want to walk through a short exercise on that. So we mentioned already, the current zoning would allow for 94 units in the overlay zone, either in the little bit of RA5, the A20, or the P160. If the TDRs that are already in the general plan were incorporated into your zoning, again, the general plan and zoning are usually consistent, then when you take the 1 per 5 and the A20, that raises that 94 total to 183. Now, our original application back in July was for 393 as the base and 570 with bonuses. After staff reviewed our application and we worked with them, we revised that so that the base would be 235 and the bonuses would be 390. So again, the comparison between the base and what could happen if the county had already implemented the TDRs, which are recommended as general plan, is just the difference between 183 and 235. So that difference really comes in the preservation of the mountain. When we preserve almost 5,000 acres and slide the density to the bench, asking for small density increase to help pay for those road improvements, infrastructure improvements, and preserving 80% of the land. The intent of the owners, as I've met with them, is really to preserve land and create something that's nice. If Wallsburg, in my opinion, develops under the current zoning, it will eat up some of the open space. The density will be less, but the trade-off is if we cluster, make lots smaller, and have a large land preservation, we can keep it nice. Many of the landowners are not in a hurry to develop, but that's really neither here nor there for your decision. You have to look at the long-range planning. One I think will come in soon, but I think this gives a long-term plan. Now in other places, this is the land use model that they look at. How can we preserve open space? How can we cluster? In other places, they put up bonds so that they can preserve open space. Here, we're giving density bonuses, encouraging cluster, and using transferable development rights to preserve open space and to maintain agriculture. Any questions for me?
While you're an engineer, you cluster some of those houses which can go sewer. Are you looking at a common system, or are you going to handle it internally with them?
We would have small clustered pod systems, the sewer that would be operated by a special service
system. Then with all that, that's what I thought. I should have come to some other meeting.
If it's clustered in different areas spread out throughout this, it would be inexpensive and really not, or it would be expensive and not feasible to run long trunk lines. With the newer Renco technology and some of the other things, it'd be better in a pod system. This would be similar to what's proposed in Strawberry. Any other questions?
I've got a question maybe for Mr. Chairman along with this. So, as far as your application is concerned, where does it stand right now? We had that moratorium for 6 months. Where do we stand with the application?
When did we extend that?
It was sent several months ago, or a month ago.
So we got another 4 or 5 months on the extension. So we'll put it to next spring.
Okay. So the applicant is still vested in the current code. It's just a moratorium on the process. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So we're not allowed to extend it again, right? Probably not, are we not? We can apply it one time and extend it one time, and that's it, right?
Yes.
Councilman Peterson, if I could just comment on that. It's my understanding that we put our general plan amendment, zone map amendment, and updates to your ordinance based on our application. We put those on hold so that the advisory committee could then advise this board. The moratorium is still on, so there wouldn't be any new applications in Wallsburg on large-scale subdivisions. We're now waiting for our applications on the general plan, zone map, and ordinance changes to then proceed by going to the public or the Plan Commission so they could finish the public process of deciding and then giving their recommendation to this group of whether you wanted to accept or reject our proposals. Okay?
Now, the only thing you're proposing change in the general plan and your overlay zone.
So
everything else is got a moratorium.
Right. So the overlay zone would be in addition to the county zoning map. And the reason for that is there's specific recommendations in the Wallsburg section of the general plan that probably don't apply to other A20 or P160 areas in the county. So the best way to keep that isolated and consistent with the general plan is to do an overlay zone. Otherwise, we'd be changing the A20 and P160 ordinances, and it could happen anywhere. Northfields, Strawberry, and that's not the intent, and nor do I think that's what the general plan is trying to do either. Thank you.
Would you send me that PowerPoint, Paul, going you just
Turn the lights back on. Turn the lights on.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Yes.
Just one counterpoint. I just want to point out the argument against Wallsburg town being a receiving zone is only considering our present boundaries. They're talking 20, 30-year planning. If we apply that to Wallsburg's general plan, I'm sure our boundaries will not be the same anymore. So keep that in mind. That kind of changes the argument a little bit.
Okay. All right, seeing no other comments from the applicant or the committee, we've been a little over an hour now. We would open this up for few comments or whatever from the public. Again, we would ask that you don't just get up and repeat what we've already heard, or whatever. We've received some letters, and you would certainly be welcome to send us letters and information that way too. Yes, come on up. Please identify yourself as you come up. Let's maybe restrict each one to about 3 minutes.
Okay, just so that I have this clear, they submitted a plan, but players in their plan have changed. We now, Wallsburg has a committee now, and so that has changed. When this moratorium is over in 4 to 5 months, not quite sure the date, and that would be good to have, then are we going to expect for Mr. Nelson and his group to present a new plan according to whatever it is that you gentlemen decide, or not submit a plan unless it goes along with the rejection of the overlay plan?
Correct me, counsel, if I'm wrong, but I would understand or would think that they're vested prior to the moratorium, they've got an application in. Whatever we decide on that, if it's even before the moratorium ends or whatever, the moratorium just stops any future proposals or plans coming in. I guess, just like any other property owner, at the end of the moratorium, if they chose to make a whole new plan, especially if we rejected prior to that what they now proposed, then yeah, they just like any other property owner, I would assume they could then put in a whole new plan after the moratorium's over.
Correct.
Am I correct on that, Dow?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so so we won't know as a town, how will we know that you guys have made a decision, or will that be made in a forum such as this?
It'll be made as a part of a public meeting.
Okay.
We're kind of having another public hearing today on these comments from the committee. I'm not sure when we bring it back on the agenda, whether it'll have.
But nothing will be decided tonight?
No, we have no intention of making any decisions. It's listed on the agenda as a presentation.
Well, that's what I thought, and I
Yeah.
just wanted, there were
No.
some things said, and I just wanted to
No, we
make
have no
sure that that
intention
was
of
clear
doing
for all of us.
any decision.
And
Not
maybe
listed that way.
only that it was just clear for me. I'm selfish.
Thank you for your comment.
What's your name?
Identify yourself.
And Plomizos, Klomizos.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
The comment was made that we needed to know what the dates were. December 23rd was the first date that Councilman Farrell made the motion that we begin the 6-month moratorium. 6 months later, we extended it another 6 months, so it'll be the end of December thereabout. That's when the second moratorium would end.
6 months from December 23rd is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Come on up.
Shauna Raby, RABY. I also just need some clarification. Because my understanding was that this meeting tonight was a presentation from the advisory committee on the general plan. That kind of morphed into a WOZ conversation. So,
WOZ.
Wallsburg recommends it.
Oh, okay.
come on, join us. Okay, so I just wonder, are the two remaining separate? And the process for changing the master plan, the general plan, as you probably read in my letter, I couldn't find that on the internet, on your website. So changing the master plan should be considered totally separate from the Wallsburg overlay zone. Is that correct? Am I correct in that understanding?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so if we're going to change the master plan, the
And that'd be
process,
on- and we would consider the recommendations from the committee
yeah,
as we look at that.
yeah. So the advisory committee are the people who were assigned by you to present information on or to find out information and then present it to you. However, it's gotten muddled in allowing the WOZ to be discussed tonight. So I just am really confused. And what is the process? Tomorrow, if I go on to the website, will I be able to find the process for making changes to the general plan? Or do you have anything you can share with me tonight about that?
That was the process.
Okay.
The applicant actually made several applications. One was an amendment to the general plan, and that would be to change some of the language that they proposed. The other would be an amendment to Title 16 that would allow for a Wallsburg overlay zone. So there are two separate items that would have to be heard separately by both the Planning Commission, who would make a recommendation to the council on the Title 16 changes, and also the general plan changes. Then they would come to the council for a public hearing as well. So both places, they're public hearings. Both places, you're talking about a general plan amendment and a Title 16 amendment.
The overlay zone would change the general plan within the zone.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I remember right, there was some language in there to allow the Wallsburg overlay zone, but in the general plan, you have, that's why it's called a general plan, it's general language. The specifics are in the Title 16 land use code.
To your other question, I guess, although I didn't pick up immediately on your acronym, I don't think there's any confusion on the council's part on where we're at with the two issues.
Okay, I think as community members, when we read your agenda and we see there's a presentation from the advisory board on the general plan, and then we get a presentation on the WOZ.
Well, some of the committees were part of the applicants. I guess that's their part of the...
Paul Berg?
Well, he represents the applicant.
Okay, and that's okay.
Yeah, well...
He was on the committee.
And the applicant was on the committee.
Yeah, the applicant was on the committee,
Yeah.
but he has not spoken tonight, so that's what I
Well,
mean.
he chose to have his representative speaking.
So, the changes to the general plan, this is the only forum for input for the whole county on those proposed changes. Is that correct? This is it.
Not just tonight.
There will be
The
more.
committee's been meeting for how long?
Well, I know, but
It's not a
when,
process like Doug just said.
yeah, there will be other opportunity for the whole county to weigh in on the changes to the general plan because it will affect the whole thing.
Well, like was recommended, which I think is worthy consideration, is do we change the general plan to relate to the whole county, or maybe we make it more specific to the Round Valley area?
Okay, so I guess my question would be...
Which he says the overlay zone will do, but
Then-
it's something to be looked at.
Thank you so much for clarification. I do appreciate this, because I'm sure I'm not the only one with these questions. Then the other thing is the water information. You're not, if you talk about these things, you're not even using all of the data that is
And we
being
won't have the
collected.
first report until July.
Yeah. So, are you going to wait till July? Are you going to start putting out little pieces for everybody to look at? What are you going to do?
Well, we've seen pieces of it tonight.
We're going to wait until we see the data, but not see.
So we can anticipate that until after July, no changes to the general plan will be voted on? I don't know.
That's a good question.
I think we can go ahead and change the general plan on the information we got now, but not make any approvals for any development until we get an answer on the water.
Yeah, so we're keeping the two things separate. So we're going to send out pieces for discussion, like tonight, this was the discussion for those particular pieces, and there's not going to be an opportunity for the county at large to provide input into these changes to the general plan. Is that correct?
Well, I guess they've already had some opportunity, but I don't know if it goes forward, we'll have to.
Now,
Was it announced that there were going to be changes to the general plan?
Right, if we were going to make changes to the general plan, one of the reasons that we can't answer is because we would have to vote on it. And so we may disagree on the vote. So we may change it, we may not, depends on how to vote it. But then that would be part of a public hearing process, is that correct? Okay. And so that would be advertised, anybody in the county could come and attend, give their input, just like tonight, the public hearing. And then at that time, if we chose to vote on it, we would vote at that time. And whatever the outcome is, we change or don't change, we have to.
Yeah. Okay, so I see that part of it. From the advisory committee, you've got kind of an idea of what you're going to do moving forward. On the Wallsburg overlay zone piece of it, because like to me they're two separate issues. Where are you at on that? Are you done collecting information for that from that, or are you ready to make a move on that? And if you are, what kind of a time frame do you think? Because from what I understood, the moratorium is only on new applications for development, that this one stands and is just waiting for you to make a decision on. Is that correct?